Greetings, ladies and gentlemen of the internet. This is Rock and Roll Spot coming at you with my weekly comic book roundup. So, let's get started. We got a dozen books from this week, as well as a surprise holdover from last week, which I thought I'd picked up but had neglected to do so. And that is actually where we're going to start. Last week's Champions number 1. Quick little rundown on the Champions. The Champions are basically designed to be Marvel's teen super team, non-mutant teen super team, though one version did have the temporarily displaced young Cyclops as a member. So anyway, last time we saw these characters, that I read them, they were facing off against Thanos. Actually, they were saving Thanos. Anyway, so the issue is narrated by team leader Miss Marvel, Kamala Khan. And it turns out that the roster, there's a primary roster, and then there's also the reserve. They have a reserve roster they can pull from. And so we start off showing one group consisting of Snow Guard, part of the primary team, the Locust, Bombshell, Pinpoint, and Falcon, not Sam Wilson, but yeah, arriving in Mexico, about 18 miles west of Culiacan. And at the same time, in the Kochi Prefecture, Japan, Ironheart, Power Man, Patriot, and the Nadia Van Dyne Wasp are arriving to. They're arriving in Japan to help with, as a disaster has struck the area. And so the group in Mexico, it turns out, is going after human traffickers, which they managed to. They rescue the girls, save the. In Japan, Ironheart, well, the group consisting of Ironheart and Power Man, Wasp, and Patriot managed to save people affected by what seems to be a rather vicious storm, though it doesn't actually say definitively what it is. Then you got Group 3, consisting of Brawn, Miss Marvel, Viv Vision, and Miles Morales, Spider-Man, going after Zax, who has destroyed a power plant in Dubai. And so they go into everything, but something weird occurs, though we don't really see what. Afterwards, Zax is contained. Group 1 has managed to rescue 27 young women who were being held by human traffickers. Meanwhile, the Group 3 has returned, but both Amadeus and Miles seem a little off. Amadeus, in fact, tells Sam Alexander, formerly known as Nova, to just, give Miles some space. So anyway, Miss Marvel gives a speech, and she also, just after the speech, seems there's something off with her as well. So she goes to talk to Miles, but she tells her to leave, and then Miles is standing in his room alone, and Mephisto appears, asking him if this is everything he hoped for. Dun dun dun. This should actually prove for an interesting, properly done Mephisto tales are usually quite interesting. Next up, we're going to continue on the Miles Morales route with Miles Morales Spider-Man #2. So where we left off, Miles had been knocked out by the cousin of a friend of his, who suddenly has electrical abilities. Well, at least is wearing a suit giving him such. After having run into the Rhino, who was also looking for a missing child. So it turns out Rhino's been keeping an eye on him until he came to. And they talk a bit. Turns out that Rhino is looking for his late wife's niece. They agree to get together the next night, and so we cut to Miles at school, tired as hell. He finds out that Barbara, the friend whose cousin attacked him the previous night, left for some reason. But when Miles tries to sneak out of school, the vice principal catches him. So after school, he gets to Barbara's, finds out what's going on, and his roommate Gank has managed to find out a few things on a private network, and so Spider-Man and the Rhino, kind of team up and go out and look into things. Turns out where the bad guys are holed up is an old safe house from back in the day, and tombstones behind it all. And so Spider-Man gets into wails on Tombstone's goons, then goes after Tombstone himself, and it's not fared too well until the Rhino shows up, and the two of them. At first, it's not the best matchup. But they do manage to take him down. However, one of the suited up kids at least manages to blind them so that Tombstone can get away. They find a bunch of others in a room, their suits charging up. And Spider-Man, Miles is trying to figure out what to do, what their next move should be when, of all people to basically volunteer to help, presumably, Captain America. And that is where the issue ends. So it looks like we're going to have a three-way team-up next issue between Miles Morales, Captain America, and the Rhino. Though, to be fair, if there's anyone in the superhero community who would probably be more than willing to help the Rhino out, no questions asked, it would be Cap. In fact, you probably wouldn't even have the preliminary, we got to fight before we figure out, oh, you're actually on the side of the angels this time. Alright, next up we got Spider-Gwen, Ghost Spider, number 4. Which serves as an epilogue of sorts to Spider-Geddon. So, okay, Spider-Geddon. The Inheritors came along once again to wipe out the various totem characters. But they managed to pull it off. So we open up with Gwen banging away on her drums. So, okay. A quick version of Spider-Geddon. Heroic Spider-Men and women from across the multiverse were drafted into a final conflict with the vampiric Inheritors. Through their combined might, the heroes averted Spider-Geddon, but the cost was very high. A victory was high. The web of life and destiny lay in tatters. The teleportation watches once in possession of the web warriors have all been destroyed, and more than one spider fell in the conflict. Now, after her own adventure across the multiverse, Gwen Stacy of Earth 65 is the only spider able to travel from world to world. And, well, you know what they say about power and responsibility. So, anyway, Gwen is practicing her drums and crying. And then she sees the ghost of the British Spider, of Captain Britain Spider-Man. Basically, take Brian Braddock, Captain Britain, and turn him into Spider-Man instead of Captain Britain. And he died during Spider-Geddon. And apparently, there's kind of a bond. There was a bond of sorts between him and Spider-Gwen. So, and on Loom World, all of them get together to pay their respects to Karn, who was the spider term amongst the Inheritors. And so they wrap up Karn's remains, each of them donating a little bit of web, make a spider-shaped pyre, and then Spider-Punk sets it on fire, sets it alight. They go to their respective Earths. Well, except with the exception of Spider-Gwen, who first goes to Earth 90,214, the home of Spider-Man Noir. Okay, bear in mind I haven't read Spider-Man Noir, so I don't know. Yeah. Anyways, so Gwen pulls MJ and May aside, tells them what's going on, but of course, May refuses to believe it. Slaps Gwen in the face and kicks her out. MJ had her suspicions, but there's not, and Peter wasn't just special to her. And so Gwen goes tell presumably Spider's Gwen Stacy, or not Gwen Stacy, but Felicia Hardy, whose face is scratched up pretty bad. And I've gotten in some altercations with my cat before, but damn, not like that. Next they go to Earth 803. Home of the Lady Spider, and pass along the bad news of what happened to William Braddock. There's graveside service. Gwen and Peter talk a bit, and Gwen kind of says, "Hey, look, I'm staying home for a while, okay?" And then she talks about also, but at the same time, when I say that, I feel kind of selfish, and there's like sometimes, you're kind of allowed to be selfish occasionally. So she goes back home, and Yeah, she's got to, like, yeah, all right, I can do this. All right, not a bad issue. He's seeing Spider-Ham sans mask. All right. Next up, we're gonna get we got kind of darker, darker, little by little. Now we're going into the real dark side of the Marvel Universe with Punisher #6. So if you recall, at the end of Punisher #5, Nick Fury had turned over Frank Castle, the Punisher, to the forces of Hydra and the nature of Bagalia. So we begin with a news recording. It's supposed to be a secret recording about what conditions are really like in Bagalia. And Punisher's caught on film shooting the reporter who says, wants to send a message to everyone back home. If you set foot in Bagalia, you're gonna die. The country is going to burn. Then we go into basically a day in the life of Baron Helmut Zemo. I think it's Helmut. Of Baron Zemo. As the chief of state of a rogue nation. Learning that your corporate allies have turned their backs on you. Ambassadors are turning their backs on. Ambassadors from other nations are turning their backs on you. Trade partners are not happy with your tariffs. Labor unions are not too happy with you. And so he asked, though, briefly for some time to himself. He smacks around Punisher, shows him the video from earlier explaining that the Chameleon has a very convincing Frank Castle mask. And, well, Jigsaw was more than happy to wear it while killing someone. And he explains that, but Zemo goes on to explain that his mother wanted to be an artist, but he thought he was too much of a sadist to be interested in art. But it turns out both of them were right, as he has carved Punisher's skull into his chest. Anyway, so he also insists that Frank be stitched up before being thrown in jail. So he is thrown into prison. No one, of course, wants to associate with him. The Hydra guards have been told they can't touch him unless he starts something first. So he does. Well, he continues something after one of the Hydra guards seasons his breakfast with urine. And then he manages to kill that guard in particular. And then another guard who hits him with a stun baton takes the stun baton to the mouth. But yeah, he's in there for 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60, 65, 70, 75, 80, 85. What looks... wow. 95 days. Some of the prisoners, while he's showering, some of the prisoners come to talk to him and explaining, hey, we're not criminals. At least not all of us. Some of this is a country whose laws have been changed to protect monsters. He's passing around and explains before they're not trying to kill him. They were making him ready to meet Sister Mercedes Arco de la Carcel. However, everyone there calls her Sister Mercy, and she's here to save Frank. And it's literally a nun. Though whether she means spiritually or, literally, we'll find out next issue. Next up, we've got the Black Order number 3. Shit. I'll fix that later. So, where we left off, the Black Order had gone after has been killing their way through an empire bit by bit, before being captured, and then broken out and brought before the rebellion. Now, like each issue, like the previous issues, this one is narrated by a specific member of the Black Order. This time, Black Dwarf. He first mentions a Kisleyan poet, Florax, who wrote that all we are is what other people see. He later goes on to mention that the Kisleyans are widely known to produce some of the worst poetry in the universe, surpassed only, in Black Dwarf's opinion, by the Vogons, which is an awesome reference to the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. But we learn some of, anyways, first off, the weapon that the Emperor possesses is explained to the Black Order. It used to be a weapon utilized by Gabriel, the Airwalker, when he was the Herald of Galactus, but it has since been perverted into something different. And we see cut to another planet where Nova, Richard Rider of Earth, the Nova Corps, New Warriors, briefly at least one Avengers squad, is having to fight a giant monster. He's not too happy about it though, because, well, he loved those. He really, really loved watching those old monster movies when he was a kid. But he manages to take out he smushes the monster. And asks that he not be sent after another kaiju. But then the arrow hits the planet and takes all the metal. And presumably also makes some changes to Nova. We'll find out. Presumably. We'll check and make sure later. So anyway, back to Black Dwarf. Like I said, we learned some about his past, as well as the past of his brother Corvus. And it turns out that Corvus and Black Dwarf were both in love with the same woman, Proxima Midnight. However, Corvus came to Black Dwarf asking guidance. And so Black Dwarf happily provided it, as he would rather feel the emptiness of not being loved, than see a hint of it in either of them. Anyway, the rebellion is attacked by assassins of Emperor Ratican. However, the day is saved by Corvus and Black Dwarf, though there are casualties for the rebellion. And so it was decided that yes, the Black Order will take care of the Ducium, which is the ore that's being mined from every planet that these arrows hit. And it's also revealed through Black Dwarf's narration that he maybe has a bit of a soft. He's begun to develop feelings for Black Swan, though Ebony Maw notices and shoots him down because Ebony Maw is an asshole. Anyways, so after they've taken the ship, what should come out of the portal behind it? An enraged and corrupted Nova. And it looks like next month's issue, the next issue will be narrated by none other than Black Swan herself. Alrighty. Moving on to Avengers number 12. So, the government is not too happy with the fact that, the U.S. government is none too happy with the fact that Black Panther is the chairman of the Avengers, which to them means that the Avengers are now foreign operatives. So at Avengers Mountain, Black Panther has called Edwin Jarvis to ask for counsel, as he's putting together a support staff, starting with Gorilla Man, who it turns out many have come to kill, hoping for the prize of an immortality. Of course, what they don't realize about that immortality is until someone kills them, they're a talking gorilla. So yeah. Next up, of course, obviously, Wasp, who we found out last issue. Okoye mentions is also going to be part of is in charge of the support staff, which also includes Kazar, provided he can get any information. Provided that he can get some information out of Atlantis without dying. Also, former ex-student Brew is going to be Avengers Mountain IT department. And we find out that apparently after his little run-in with Domino, Morbius was attacked by Dracula's forces and then rescued by Wasp. But there were vampires that jumped onto the Quinjet, and yeah, they're not giving things up too easily. However, Manwolf, also an agent of also part of the support staff, is on hand to help save the day. Odin is also discovered to be an unofficial advisor to the Avengers chairman. Other members of the support staff include American Eagle, which is nice to see. I haven't been reading comics, all too often since that point. But the last time I remember seeing American Eagle was way back in the aftermath of Civil War, and Sepulchre, I don't know how to pronounce it, and Steel Spider ran afoul of the Thunderbolts. Next up, we got Dr. Nemesis and Fat Cobra. And there's an Agent Solomon who's working with Thor. And Kazar makes his way back, having gained some intel on Atlantis' troop movements, and potentially brought in dinner. And finally, there are two security briefings for the Avengers, one on Atlantis and the other on what appears to be a brewing vampire civil war, which leads Black Panther to introduce the newest member of the Avengers, Blade. And next issue should be quite fun, as we'll be going back to 1 million BC, where we will be learning the origin of the first Iron Fist. Actually, really looking forward to that. I kind of dig those one-offs, and really hope that one of these days we'll get all of them collected to buy them just then. And hell, maybe even an Avengers 1 million BC miniseries. Next up, we've got Captain Marvel #1, focusing on the star of the next Marvel movie. So, all right, we start off with a little one-page history lesson on Captain Marvel. We learned that the last year has been kind of difficult for her. Her brother suffered a life-threatening injury, and so Carol stepped down from the Avengers and Alpha Flight, the Earth Space Defense Program, to care for him. Then it was revealed that when a Kree assassin attacked family home and killed her mother, that her mother had been a Kree warrior all along. So, we start off in Lower Manhattan. Captain Marvel is fighting what appears to be a friggin' Kraken alongside Jessica Drew, Spider-Woman, her best friend. And, well, Jessica's missed Carol. Anyway, so they're working together, talking a bit, having fun. Honestly, it's a fun bit of superheroics. Like, this is the kind of this is one of the reasons why I read comic books. So they go to knock the Kraken back into the ocean, but it grabs this little girl, and Captain Marvel goes to save the girl and kill the Kraken. Iron Man shows. Let me rephrase that. The core legion of remote control Iron Man armors show up. Iron Man wants to talk to Tony. Tony wants to talk to Carol. They talk a bit, and there's a couple things he wants her to do. One, an interview. You know, kind of get the public back. Basically, kind of make Carol thought of more as being a hero of Earth, not the hero in the girl, not the one that's up in space. And also help out with former Avengers Academy student Hazmat. Because, well, for one, Tony's been trying to help, but, well, the girl doesn't like Tony at all, which automatically endears Carol to her. And then we also have a reunion between Carol Danvers and James Rhodes, her until recently dead boyfriend. The two have lunch, they talk a bit, and the reporter However, it's interrupted by the reporter that has been called to interview Carol. It's about to begin, and then there's Carol's attacked by Nuclear Man. No, not the jerk off from Superman 4, but a different jerk off. Anyway, Carol smacks him around, and then the Avengers show up. Thor apparently likes Nuclear Man's coat, but Thor has odd fashion tastes. And yeah, Nuclear Man kidnaps the reporter, and Carol goes after them. However, apparently none of the others seem able to follow. However, Rhodey says to the other three Avengers, you know what, by the time they manage to get through that portal, there's going to be nothing left to do. Every minute that Carol's in there, she's going to be fighting like hell. And so we see her on whichever side world she's on, leading a revolution. I actually really like this picture. And with her, we've got Echo, Aranya, Hazmat, and I think, not sure, but I think that's Quentin Quire. I kind of hope I'm wrong, because Quentin Quire is the worst. Next on the list, we've got Uncanny X-Men number 9. So where we left off, X-Men and Legion had merged into one entity. And that's where we start things off. And so, X-Legion grabs Multiple Man, which is exactly why I was not going to call this combination Legion Man, because, well, Multiple Man. As X-Men has discovered what Legion was doing earlier with Multiple Man, starts punching him and punching him and punching him, but it's like, then Multiple Man explains that he's a dupe. Now, one thing about that, that's not how it works, or at least not historically. Normally, it's the dupes that, you know, or it's all the Madroxes can make Madroxes. Oh well. Plot significance. So the dupe is destroyed, and everyone's kind of like, and Storm says that she never thought she'd ever be more grateful for Jamie Madrox's incompetence. However, X-Legion calls forth his Horsemen of Salvation and adds Storm to the mix. And so they fight the X-Men. And it's not going well, like in the slightest. Jean then does her telepathy shtick and contacts every single member of the X-Men and says, "Hey, to me, my X-Men." Yay, there's Cargill. Meanwhile, Armor's got a plan and basically removes the Horsemen from the fight. We find out why it was that Enole stole the vaccine. It's because he doesn't. He feels he's given. But it can be hope to not be monsters, outcasts, hunted, feared, alone. Though Beast explains that you haven't given mutants a choice. You handed the government a weapon. As he's being, given a speech, Pixie shows up to teleport at least Beast into the battle. As things continue, both Apocalypse and the Senator try to escape, though Apocalypse means to kill the Senator. However, Kitty Pryde saves him and explains, and when the Senator asks her why, after everything he said, why, and she explains, but we do. We're heroes for everyone. And it turns out that Armor's plan was basically just a diversion. Anyways, Armor's plan ultimately fails because her, Glob, and Roxxon just weren't powerful to hold off the Horsemen of Salvation. And so X-Legion decides to mess with the tectonic plates because he is that powerful and telekinetic, and sink the continent. But then all the X-Men show up. Though there is, I will admit, there is a certain short Canadian I see missing. X-Legion, well, as X-Man has taken over Legion's body, he continues and he explains he never understood why X-Man was singular, but now he knows. And before he ends, he must end the X-Men. Beast shows up, however, leading all the X-Men, and explains that if he wants to beat the X-Men, he has to beat all the X-Men. That's quite the shot of what would generally referred to as the X-Men B-list. But still, damn. What a shot. Alrighty, and moving on to X-23, number 8. Last issue, Laura and Gabby had stopped an assassin who turned out to look just like them. Meanwhile, at the tank, a federal jail for unclassified phenomena, where they were turning in the assassin, they're under attack. And so Laura calls Beast, and Beast, he's under fire a bit, so he's got to, figure something out. And Gabby explains to Laura that the assassin is coming with them. First, though, they got to clear things out when people are shooting, which means Gabby runs in with her claws popped and injures everybody since she can't be injured. It's actually the cutest thing, her running out, just being all, "Hi, everybody!" I mean, seriously, how adorable is that? So anyways, they escape. And it is confirmed that yes, the assassin is yet another clone of Laura and Gabby. But there are subtle differences. For example, no healing factor. Meanwhile, at Meta-Xtronics corporate headquarters, a presentation is being given on the X-Assassin. The X-Assassin has the brute killing instinct of the X-23, but leaves the true X-Factor, the human element, behind. So it turns out to be none other than Dr. Chandler, who, yes. Um, I think they're trying to say he has cybernetic legs. I'm guessing that Laura cut off his legs. And of course explains that this can't... This is a weapon that exists solely for their purposes, and he's guaranteed it. But Laura's trying to make sure that Gabby doesn't get too attached to the assassin. And yeah, she has a brief flashback of all the terrible things she's done. So they turn in. Separate rooms. Gabby sneaks out, goes to visit the assassin, and begins to tell her all about herself. Not noticing that from the looks of the assassin's eyes, she's being recorded. I will say this much: these guys look pretty awesome. The assassin's body looks pretty awesome. Anyways, moving on to Iceman number 5. Where we left off, Iceman had been captured by Sinister and had apparently been reduced to nothing but shards of ice. So the issue begins once upon a time in Los Angeles. Iceman talking with Judah, his ex-boyfriend, wanting to ride dirt bikes together, while Judah's trying to show him some old comic books. But 13 beaches later, they're hanging out at the beach and talking, and Iceman explains that he doesn't get to be like that the way he is there back home. He could feel the earth shatter, trying to keep people distracted or annoyed or amused. And he thinks they wouldn't notice that he was so damn lonely and sad. Anyway, Sinister is, of course, sorry that Iceman has seemingly fallen apart. Except that it was an Iceman. It was an ice golem that he made with cameras and sensors, put into it. Meanwhile, being Pride Parade, turns out the security is actually a bunch of anti-mutant types, and yeah, they start shit up. And while Emma insists not upon discretion, Christian, her brother, said Emma Frost is from discretion. Christian, her brother, like, no, I'm sick of discretion. Anyway, Iceman, fights Mr. Sinister, while his ice columns fight the ice columns Mr. Sinister's created. Yeah. After he gets run through with an energy harpoon and is able to survive quite handily. But yeah, it's quite the brawl. And then Iceman flies Sinister out, tosses him up into the air, and yeah. And it's all apparently a lot of what's been going on has been taped. And the ice golems that Sinister sends to attacking in Pride Parade are the missing Morlocks. Going full circle to the first issue. Also, other Morlocks that helped with, making sure with the parade. Anyway, later on, Kitty and Iceman talk a bit because, Iceman didn't tell Kitty what he was doing, and yeah. Anyway, so there's a mysterious figure made of ice watching outside the mansion, telling Bobby to sleep well and he'll be seeing him soon. And this is why I'm pissed off that this is a mini-series and not an ongoing series, because now, this will be the end of next month. This thread will be continued in Uncanny X-Men: Winter's End. Really, guys, that could have just been Iceman number 6. Oh, fracking well. Next up, we've got Domino number 10. Where we left off, Domino and Longshot had something of a duel, as apparently Longshot is fated to lead to the destruction of the world. And was also going a bit loopy. And it seems their luck powers kind of cancel each other out. But he had fallen. And so they're trying to figure things out, and during it, Domino says a prayer to who, and she was a god or whatever, and says she explained that she just wants her to be someone out there that's bigger than Galactus, bigger than the Beyonder, for moments like this one. She manages to catch Longshot, direct his fall, explains what's going on. Yet another fight. With Atlas Bear. Though Outlaw kind of shows up and pops for one. And they explain that there's only one way to fix what's wrong with Longshot. They gotta go to the Mojoverse. So they do. And they see what Mojoverse looks like. Of course, for Longshot's first-hand experience, it's, how things are. For everyone else, it's something new. So they arm themselves, and they get to the one hospital on the planet. And they manage to make their way in. Longshot is saved, and it's explained after leaving that the doctors at the hospital had a lot more patience. And so apparently, also when Longshot and Domino parted ways, Longshot whispered in her ear, "I don't ever want to hear you say you are not a hero again. Is that clear? Never again." And Atlas Bear has left a note saying, I'd like to join the posse. Looks like up next will be Hot Shots, which will have the posse and more all together. And sadly, Domino comes to an end. Like I said, it's to replace, at least for a while, with Hot Shots. Next up, we've got Star Wars: Age of the Republic, Jango Fett. So, Jango Fett, bounty hunter, template for the Grand Army of the Republic, father. So we start off on the planet Telarath. Three bounty hunters waiting on a fourth. Let me see. We got Rodian, Nilda. Oh God, I can't remember what that. Kicking myself because I can't remember that race, but Tyver, and then a Gand named Rin. And Django is, of course, bringing along, of course, the fourth member of the crew, Django. And Django is bringing along his son, Boba. As they fly off, Boba makes a few comments about this. You know, he doesn't understand why they're doing a job with this crew. He hasn't heard of any of them. You know, why not work with Cad Bane or Ara Singh or Zam Wessel? To which Django says, because you know them or know of them, which means you have at least some idea of how they work. The unknown factor is the real lesson. And we also see the meeting between the initial meeting between Tyrannus and Django, some time ago. Anyway, so they track down their target to Ord Mantell. Turns out that she's a Twilight tried to escape. She's apparently found love with a Faline. But the Twilight doesn't want to go back. So she jumps off the railing she's on, and is caught. By Jango Fett, and stunned as well. Anyways, once everything's said and done, they put the girl in the hold of the slave one. Well, it turns out Tyber and Rin decide they're gonna betray everyone. They want the girl. And they'll give Jango back to Boba. However, of course, Nella doesn't want anything to do with this. But Boba manages to get himself free. And he kills both Tyber and Rin. Nelda Nelda's given the deal of he can forfeit his shares to the bounty, or he can forfeit his life. Nelda takes the deal. And explains that one, it's adding to Jango's reputation, and it's beginning to build Boba's reputation, which of course makes Jango quite happy. His son's not even. Keep in mind, this tale takes place before the events of episode 2. Shit. Anyways, next and last on the list is Alien 3: The Unproduced Screenplay, number 3. Things are starting to get bad for both factions. In Rodina Biolab, they're studying alien, it's an uncorrupted alien embryo. Back at Anchor Point, the UPP vessel is docked, bringing Bishop, who has been fixed And the first thing he asks for is a full once-over. Further experience for being looked at, but one of them manages to get loose. Meanwhile, before Newt leaves, she leaves a map with Ripley as to where to find her. Bishop isn't sure whether or not his memories have been accessed at all. The last thing he remembers, his verbal base records a statement not bad for a human, but the context is missing. So one would think his memories have been corrupted. Also brought aboard Anchor Point was a xenomorph. Anyways, the lab gets cleaned up after the accident, and it turns out that Bishop is now in charge of all the experiment, well, in charge of everything. And Sulaco leaves with Newt on board. Her and Hicks share a quick affirmative. Meanwhile, in Rodina, the xenomorphs have gotten. The xenomorph is loose. A hive is being built. Though now Rita can't be raised at all. So anyways, Hicks is brought in by some of the crew, the Anchor Point crew. They're going to destroy all the specimens. They plan to destroy all the xenomorph specimens. However, one of their cleaning crew, while going through decontamination, is promptly attacked and run through by the xenomorph's tail. And that's that. Alright. That concludes this week's roundup. Hopefully we'll be doing. We'll see about doing a review. We might be doing a review of the Keanu Reeves film Replicas tomorrow. Not entirely sure, but largely depends on whether or not there are early showings or not. As always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Links to Facebook, Twitter, and Patreon pages are in the description box down below. This is Rock Box signing off, saying live long and rock hard.